Hello everyone, this is Chris with OverclockersClub. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Silent Base 600. This is a new case from Be Quiet. Now Be Quiet is a premier manufacturer out of Germany. They make some amazing power supplies and CPU coolers. And recently they've even dipped their toes into the world of liquid cooling. But today we're going to look at this case, so we'll get it out of the box and take a look at some of the cool features that the Silent Base 600 offers. Okay, we have the case out of the box. We're going to go ahead and talk about some of the external features. We'll start with the top of the case first. We have 6 small slots here for the hot air to come out of the case. Usually cases have a very large expanded open grid area here for the venting for the hot air to get out. But this case, with the interest being in staying quiet, of course, we're going to minimize the amount of holes or openings for sound to escape. Now we swing it around to the front here. We'll talk about the door here. I really like this door. It has a very nice brushed aluminum, very dark, like a satin or a matte finish. It's not glossy or shiny at all, but very high quality. All of our lines are fit and finish. That's one of the things I noticed about this case. Everything is just perfect. No mismatches, no warpage, no bending, no potato chipping of panels at all. Very, very nice quality. So we'll go ahead and open this door, and we have 3 optical drive bays, and at the top of this we have our USB 2.0 ports, we have our headphone and microphone jack, and our USB 3.0 ports, and then we have a very large power button up here on top that is illuminated, and then we have our little hard drive activity light also at the top. On either side of the front here we have some vents. And these vented sections have a nice orange trim around them. And toward the bottom, we'll look here below this door, we actually have a filter panel. Because behind this lower section is fixed. It does not move. There's a fan here, a ventilation fan. And we'll take a look at it a little later when we take the entire front fascia off. But we have a nice removable, easily cleanable filter panel there. So we'll just pop that back in, close that door. We'll swing it around and look at the side panel here. One of the things I find a bit curious is this little section here that seems to be sunk in, and then there's a middle piece here. And when we get the panel off, we'll look at it in more detail, but this actually can pop out to different levels, and it allows more or less air to go through here. This is actually a vented section behind here. We'll swing it around to the rear. At the top, we have our 120 millimeter exhaust fan. We have the opening for our I/O panel on the motherboard. Looking down, we have our 7 PCIe expansion slots. We have a vented section over here, and then at the bottom we have the opening for the power supply. Now looking at the windowed side here, and we'll take this panel off and look at it here in just a moment, but this is actually 2 layers of plastic here. So we actually, just like a window in your house, we have 2 separate windows, an inside and outside, instead of just a single pane, and this goes a long way towards isolating or actually insulating against sound travel to the outside. So we'll take a look here at the bottom of the case. Let me go ahead and flip it over. And we'll see what we have going on here. Now we have our very large 4 rubber padded feet here. Looks like we're about an inch or so of clearance underneath the case for airflow. And then we have another vent section here that slides out from the bottom, so it actually slides down that way. And this covers not only the air intake for the power supply, but we actually have a section here inside the case that will allow for a bottom fan to help pull air in from the bottom of the case if you like. So we'll go ahead and get the case opened up here so we can see what's going on the inside. All right, we'll take a look at the bottom of the case again in a little more detail. I showed you earlier that this bottom filter panel slides out, and we'll show that in a little better here. You can see the whole filter panel comes out for easy cleaning, and then fast and easy reassembly. Now, I also want to talk about the side panel again in a little more detail. This side panel here is actually 2 layers of plastic. So we have an outer layer and we have an inner layer. And this really goes a long way towards isolating sound. There's a rubber gasket, this orange trim piece here, that also helps absorb any vibration or sound, keep that from getting outside of the case. Now we'll take a look at the inside of the case here in a little more detail. First, we'll look at the hard drive cage. Over here, this hard drive cage, it is removable and it can be moved up here to this top section. And it has room for 3 hard drives. And there's actually space up on top here for a solid state drive. And then we look at the motherboard tray. We have a very large, generous opening here that allows access to the back of the motherboard when you install your CPU cooler. We can handle a full-size ATX and a micro ATX motherboard. We have our four orange grommets here to pass our cables through. We have our standard USB 3.0, our audio, and then our motherboard control cables here. At the top, we have our 3 places to mount our optical drives. They're toolless for quick installation. At the top of the case here, we have room for either a 240 or 280 millimeter radiator. At the back, we have a rear 120 millimeter exhaust fan. And then at the bottom of the case, again, we have space to add an extra fan. And then on this side is where the power supply goes, and it gets its air intake from there. So we'll go ahead and get the rear panel off and take a look at it next. Alright, we got both panels off now. We got the front windowed panel off. We've got the back panel off. And I want to talk to you real quick about the hardware package. Little hardware box here. Comes with your hardware to mount your motherboard. We got miscellaneous screws in there. All kinds of good things. It also comes with these nice orange rubber. Pretty flexible. These are the insulators that go on the side of your hard drive. So when your hard drive slides in, any vibration, any sound, any noise does not get transferred to the hard drive cage and subsequently to the case and then outside of the case. So these are really nice, and again, we have enough here for 3 hard drives, which is what this hard drive cage can handle. Now we rotate the case around here to the back side. We do have 2 little removable mounts. These some screws come off, and these mounts are what allow you to put a solid state drive on the back of the case. So you have these nice little metal mounts and then a thumb screw that holds those on, so we can put 2 solid state drives on the back side of the motherboard tray, and then we also have provisions here to install a 3rd solid state drive on top of this little hard drive cage. Now, the next thing I want to do is pull off the top fascia, and we're going to go ahead and pull off the front fascia so we can see what's going on there. Now that the top cover and the front fascia have been removed, you can really see the skeleton of the case there, the base frame. When we look at the front here, one thing I forgot to mention earlier, we do have a little switch up here at the top. This is actually for a little fan controller, and it's tied to your 140 millimeter Pure Wings 2 fan that's included, and the back exhaust fan, which is 120 millimeter Pure Wings 2 fan. So both of these fans, plus you have a little socket here so you can actually add a 3rd fan if you want it to be controlled by this little switch here. So you do have that ability. Now, looking at the frame here, if we look at the top, we can see we have the mounting provisions for either 240 or 280 millimeter radiator in the top of the case. And at the front, we can actually mount a 140 millimeter, up to 140 millimeter radiator up here too. We can also put a radiator at the back of the case too if we like. So you get a better look there at the entire case with everything stripped down. Now we'll take a look at the top cover here. You can see the cooling vents there, and there's the back side of it. So we don't have the wide open top cover that we often see in cases to get the heat out. And then as we come over here and we look at the entire front fascia. Now this is a pretty big piece of equipment here. There's a lot going on. You can see on the inside there's the vent panel from the inside. That's what pops out from the front when you open the top door. There's that large vented section too on either side too that allows the case to pull in more air. So the next thing we have to do is get the motherboard in there and start running some thermal tests and see how well this case can keep everything cool. Now I want to spend a little bit of time here talking about, this is the side panel that goes on the back of the case, or the motherboard side. And what is interesting about this is this little cover here. And the way this cover is set up, it actually has some little detents here in these plastic tabs, so you can control how far out this pushes, so you can control how much air can get in or exhaust. Now, when I say exhaust, what I mean is you can actually remove this all together. There's a little filter section here that comes out, and we actually have provisions for a 120 millimeter fan. So on the back side of the motherboard tray, we can go ahead and mount a 120 millimeter fan. We can either pull air into the case and push it against the back of the motherboard, or we can use it as an exhaust fan and help to suck air out of the case and push it out from behind the motherboard. So either way, this is a nice little feature. Alright, we now have the motherboard installed. We still have to get the cooler and the graphics card and the rest of the power cables run, but motherboard looks real nice in there. Plenty of room. It is a full-size ATX. So let's keep going and see what it looks like. Alright, we've got everything assembled. We've got everything all powered up. There's our Titan GTX graphics card, our Noctua D14 cooler. And we're going to wait a few minutes here while Windows does a few updates. But after that's done, we'll go ahead and do some thermal testing here and see how this case handles the heat. One little feature here that I almost overlooked on the hard drive cage, it's kind of nice. On the side of the hard drive cage, there's this little sliding bar here. It's actually a little locking bar. And what it does is, after you attach these orange isolators, these little rubber, they're pretty flexible. After you attach them to the side of your hard drive, on either side, and it comes with the fasteners, you slide it into the cage, and here on either side there's a little groove, a little slot on either side of the little damper. So you slide your hard drive into the cage all the way in, and then you loosen this screw and you drop the locking bar down, and that little tab in there slides into the slot and locks your hard drive in so it doesn't flop around. So that's a neat little feature on the hard drive cage. Alright, we'll take a look at things thermally and see what they look like. Of course, you can see the monitor there. It's giving off a little bit of heat. But the case, everything is idle. We don't really have much heat on the case itself, except when you get to the back, you can see there's the exhaust fan. We got a little bit of heat there. Of course, there's the graphics card. We got a little bit of heat there, and a little bit of heat down there at the power supply. So we'll go ahead and do some thermal loading, and we'll see what the temperatures look like. Alright, now we got things loaded up here. And you can see we're getting a little bit of heat build up at the very back of the case. And we come down to the back here, there's the exhaust fan. That's where we really see some heat coming out of there now. Of course, we've got the CPU fully loaded. And then we've got, of course, our video card is idle, so there's not any more really coming out of there. And of course, we're stressing our power supply a little more because we're putting the full load to the CPU. So now we'll go ahead and see what happens when we stress the video card. Alright, we're going ahead and do the stress test for the graphics card, and we can see things are a little toasty at the back of the case. Of course, there's the exhaust fan, and since we're idling the CPU, it's fairly cool. We get down here to the graphics card where we're running a stress test on it, and we're getting close to 70 degrees C coming off the back of the card there. But as you can see, the rest of the case is still fairly cool. Alright, this will wrap up the review of the Silent Base 600 from Be Quiet. This is really a great little case, and one thing I want to say above all else that I really liked about this case was the fit and finish. This is like the Mercedes of cases here. The way all the panels fit together, the alignment, the overall quality and workmanship here is just absolute top-notch. Can't say enough about it. What else does the Be Quiet Silent Base 600 bring to the table? We have the additional insulation of the dual pane side window. You actually have 2 layers of plastic there to help insulate and isolate against noises. We do have some additional sound insulation and deadening in the side panel there and in the front door here. We have that you don't normally see in cases. So that goes a long way to keeping this case very quiet. And I will say, during the thermal testing, when the D14 was spooled all the way up, you could not hear a thing. This is a very, very quiet case. Now that might change a little bit if you had a top-mounted radiator with dual fans. You might notice a little more sound, but still, this is a very, very quiet case. You can handle up to a full-size ATX motherboard, so this is very versatile. I really, really like it. Right now, you can find this case out there for $109, $119, right around that price range, which I think is very reasonable for a case of this quality. It is available, as you can see. This particular one has the side window and it has the orange trim. We also have silver, we have black, we also have a couple of non-windowed versions, so both panels are solid. And I looked around a little bit and I see, even though I don't see it listed on the Be Quiet website, but we also have green, the green trim, the accents on the side. We also have red that I notice. So you might look into that if you're interested in a slightly different color combination. So this wraps up our review of the Be Quiet Silent Bass 600. This is Chris from Overclockers Club, and thanks for watching.